أتاني مرة نزق ليسألني بما دنت، فقلت له أنا رجل أحب الله يا أنت، أتسأل كيف منهاجي أما بالحق آمنت، عباد الله إخواني فكن منهم إذا شئت، وكن معنا على حذر من التفريق إن صنت.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Assalamu alaikum everyone. Before we start, can I have a quick tilawah by me?
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد.
Jazakumullah khairan. Today we have Sheikh with us to cover the topic of the Makki part of the Prophet Mohammad SAW life. So over to you, Sheikh.
إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونعوذ بك من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا، من يهدي الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. أما بعد، يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم، ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. ثم أما بعد، إن الأصدق الحديث كتاب الله، وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم، وشر الأمور محدثاتها، وكل محدثة بدعة، وكل بدعة ضلالة، وكل ضلالة في النار. I bear witness there's no one worthy of worship except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is the last and final messenger. We send our blessings and salutations upon Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And at the same time, we also remember the Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala ajma'een. Wallahi, my brothers over here, if it wasn't for the Sahaba, me and you wouldn't have enjoyed this religion the way we do today. I mean, they were the ones, real people, the real deal that we're speaking about. I mean, those people were the ones who heard the words سَمِعْنَا وَأَطَعْنَا. Simple words. They heard it, they did it. I mean, how many of us today, when we hear so many advices, we still look for loopholes? We still go to the best sheikh around, Google Ibn Yahoo. I mean, that gives the verdict in your favor many times. And well, let's not be naive, you know. So, I mean, we always are looking for the loopholes. And thanks to Sheikh Google, he's been around, he's helped us out. He's going to be helping youth as well, you guys and the people after you. You never know. In my time there was Yahoo. Now he's got his son around Ibn Yahoo, which is Google. You never know, Google might have a son in your children's time as well. But you know, today the topic's very vast. So I'm actually going to start. I also apologize of my funny accent because I'm from London and I do have a bit of tinge. I've been living in Australia for about 12 years, but I still throw some words around. It's very hard to lose them because I've grown up in London, so you will see some tinge here and there, but I can imitate Australians as well, so I've been here for a long time. So anyways, I mean, the life itself is a very rich life, and I don't want to go into much detail, but I will give you some, I mean, when we talk about the Prophet, primarily you're speaking about legacy. You're speaking about how do you want to be, who do you want to be like. I mean, that's what we're speaking about, the Prophet. And if you look at the Prophet as well, and well, personally, you know what, I'm actually going to start, because we're in the Meccan, and I actually picked up a book, which I've never read before. And thanks to Brother Ishad, he actually passed that book, and it was something that you guys can borrow. A great book by a great scholar, and something the ideology of Islam is behind. Did you know that this guy was one of the pinnacles, one of the foundations to actually declare the Qadiani sect as a non-Muslim sect? He was actually one of the foundation. I mean, he wasn't in the parliament, but he was the one who actually started the mission. I do have many differences with him as well, but at the same time, I do respect him. Great scholar. I mean, the people who have passed, I mean, the ones who have gone away, they're greater than us. We're still living, we're still bound to make mistakes. The scholars have gone and we learn from them. That's why I say it's a very good book, because it has little notes just to explain the ayah. Mostly, a lot of us, we sit down over here, we've heard the entire Quran every Ramadan, but we really don't understand. You read the surah, Qul Huwallahu Ahad. That surah is part of the Makki period. Do you know why was it revealed? What was the reason behind that? That was the reason. And then you start with that surah, so I'll start the Makki life with that. When Abu Jahl and Walid ibn Mughira, all these cruel cronies, they gathered and they said to the Prophet that, what does your God look like? Has he got daughters? And the other angels are daughters of God. And at that point in time, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told Muhammad the surah was revealed. And these are the amazing surahs, short surahs, they were revealed one after the other. You've got Inna Ataynaka al-Kawthar. And we love it. We're Muslim, let's not be naive. If it wasn't for me and you leading the salah, we'd probably lead it with Inna Ataynaka al-Kawthar and the second surah, Qul Huwallahu Ahad, life solved. Most of us pray like that. 17 times 17 rakahs we have in our life, in the whole day. Those are the fara'id that we do. If it was down to us, let's not fool ourselves. Out of those 17, at least 10 times we read Qul Huwallahu Ahad. They will memorize it. Do you know why we don't make mistakes in these surahs? Because we just read them every day. Every day. Well, probably not every day. We'll probably read it 4 or 5 times every day. That's the right word. So basically the surah was revealed in order to let the kuffar know that God is only one. And Allah actually uses the word samad. What it really means in essence, self-sufficient. None of us are self-sufficient over here. We all need someone. Just look at a baby, just look at yourselves. Your youth, you need your parents to pay for your fees, to pay your bills. Maybe you might just turn around and say, you know what, I can look after myself. But still, you're not self-sufficient. You still need someone or the other to actually look after you. So that's why this Allah, when Allah uses the word samad, it actually it encompasses everything. It actually does not need anyone. If you just go to another surah, which is part of the surah of Surah Baqarah, which we all know is Ayat al-Kursi, Allah actually says, that He does not sleep. Sinatun wala nawm. That actually, sinner actually means, when you're driving the car for long hours, or even when you're sitting in front of your computers. Youth, you guys love computers. It was down to the father or the computer, a very easy choice, I guess. You definitely choose the computer or a mobile phone over the parents. So, because they keep you entertained. The parents can be very boring at times. They just say things which you probably don't like. And a lot of times our parents also don't understand us. Let's not be... this is a problem, and another problem. We've only got one father over here. But a lot of times you're not understanding where they're coming from. The culture's really different. You guys have grown up over here. You've actually gone to the school over here. And... the culture that you've seen and the culture probably the parents have seen overseas when they come down here, very, very different. So a lot of times they're not on the same page as you guys. So what happens is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reveals this surah, and there's another surah which comes right after that, which is Inna Ataynaka al-Kawthar, and then the last part of Surah Alaq, which is actually a slap on the face of Abu Jahl, because Abu Jahl actually is challenging Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam every now and then. And so at that time, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Alaq, from that verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Sanad'u Zabaniya. Allah actually uses that word. What it really means, that Allah is saying to him to call everyone, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, this is the answer for him, that tell him that we are also going to call Zabaniya. These are the angels of hellfire. Allah says, we're going to call them and they will deal with you. And so there's an incident very quickly, and then I'm actually going to go in this seerah very chronologically. I'm actually going to give you a gist of it, what it is. It does take a lot of time, but I'm going to keep it very lesson orientated. So I'm actually going to talk about some lessons in there, so what we can learn from it. So when you look at when there was a time when Abu Jahl had enough, of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And he said to all the gang members, you know what, I'm actually going to deal with him. You guys are too weak. I'm going to see him now, and I'm actually going to carry a boulder, and I'm going to go inside the Kaaba when he's praying, and I'm going to kill him with that. Just crush him with that. That's it. And this is what he does. He sees Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam praying, and he walks with this boulder, and every his gang members, all these Walid ibn Mughiras and Uqba ibn Ma'id and all these guys, they're just cheering, egging him on, and he's going with that boulder, and all of a sudden when he's about to arrive very close to Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he sees the land open. When he sees the land open, he sees a fire pit, and from that he sees wings coming out. And so that's what Allah was talking about, Sanad was Zabaniya. These are the guardians of hellfire, and they'll be coming out. So what he does, he actually gets so scared that he runs away, and he drops the boulder and he runs away. And all these guys carry on to his house, and they say, what happened to you? He said, didn't you see that fire pit that opened up in the ground? Didn't you see those big wings? And I said, no, we didn't see anything. See, well, look, I saw something, that's why I got scared and I ran away. So this is some of the things that was happening. That's why when you learn about Seerah, Quran becomes a companion. So they start, acknowledging and appreciating what Quran is. Because all that Quran was revealed to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And when there is a reason of something being revealed, so maybe I'm going to throw a question now. Well, what if ayah comes down or a verse comes down, and there's a reason behind it? What do you say that in Arabic for that? There's a terminology for that. What was the reason? I mean, if you know Arabic language, it's very easy to put the words together. What was the reason? The reason of revelation. That's the English terminology. So what's the Arabic terminology for that? The English terminology is the reason for revelation.
Miracle? And the Arabic.
See, ayah came down. I just gave you an example. The surah which came down, which the brother just read, was because of a reason. Because they were asking questions. They were saying God has, daughters, and what does he look like? We've never seen him. Is he a male or is he a female? And as the aqidah of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, we believe, and if we don't believe it, today is the time to believe that God does not have any gender. Also, angels don't have any gender. Because the Quraysh used to call them the daughters of Allah. They don't have any gender. But because in Arabic and in English and in the languages, the dominant gender is the male gender. So if you don't find a substitute for it, you actually call that thing, and if you're implying to that thing, you actually use a male gender. That's why God is used as he. When you talk about Jibreel, you say he. You actually don't say he, she, because that's not the dominant gender. So what's that Arabic word? I was thinking you guys are going to trump me. I mean, so many shuyukhs around me, mashallah, nurani faces. Asbab al-nuzul. That's the terminology. So the reason for revelation. So this is how. So now before we get into the nitty-gritty, I'm going to spend another 20 minutes just talking now. I'll ask you some questions in the middle as well. But so very quickly the story begins not from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Actually begins from the migration of Ismail and Hajar. That's where the real story begins. And that's how we need to actually know the Arabs in order to know why Allah sent a messenger to this land and what was the reason behind that. So we need to appreciate all that. There's only 3 kinds of Arabs. Remember that now. So the first kinds of Arabs were the Arabs which have been pretty much, have been demolished. I mean, you don't know about them anymore, which is Ad and Thamud. And that's why, if you look at Old Testament, these are the only 2 nations have been left out, because they were the pure Arabs. After that came the Arabized Arabs, where these were the Qahtanis, and these are the Jurhum tribe, which actually comes to Mecca, and they actually stay over there. And so this is the tribe that is related, and they were the ones who married in with Ismail, and that's how he became. And the third kind of Arabs are the Adnani Arabs, which are actually Adnaniites, or whatever you want to call the word is Adnani. Where these are the ones that these are the ones the modern Arabs as well, which are the ones who actually learn the language, they acquired the language. So Ismail is part of that as well. Muhammad SAW is from both lineage. So he's coming from the Jurhum as well. Why? Because Ismail's wife's from Jurhum. And Ismail actually is not an Arab. As you know, Ibrahim alayhi is not from, he's from the region of Sham. And even if it's not from the, let's say it's from the region of Iraq as well, Iraq does not speak Arabic. So that was not the region. Now today they speak Arabic. These are all people who have acquired the language. I mean, we Pakistanis are tough skin. Even the Arabs came to us, we didn't acquire that language. We just speak our own language. And but the Egyptians had the gist of Arabs, they became Arabs. Iraq had Arabs, they became Arabs. The Lebanon and all that region, when the Arabs went there. But when they came to us, we said, no, we're not taking your language. We're happy with the language of our own. So that's why we struggle today, just in order to understand the Quran as well. And just, that's the part of our struggle. But now going back to the story, is now it goes all the way from Adnan, which is, Adnan is after 4 or 5 children of Ismail. He's down in the line, but he's after 3 or 4. And then comes Adnan, and from Adnan the lineage traces all the way back to Muhammad SAW. And then the real Quraysh actually is named after a great-great-grandfather, which is Fihr. Probably heard that word before? Fihr. So that's the word Quraysh comes from. And idol worship came to Mecca from the guy known as, who can tell me who brought idol worship now? That's a very quick question. Jurhum, Allah subhanahu, the sunnah of Allah is when you become tyrants and when you start transgressing the boundaries of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah brings a new leader. Allah actually changes you, replaces you. That's the sunnah. That's what happens. And if you look everywhere around the world, I mean, the best example is the Khilafah of Umayyads. Umayyah, actually the Khilafah, when their great-great-grandchildren came, with all due respect to the great-grandfathers, which is Abu Sufyan radiallahu an, Muawiyah radiallahu an, these guys are great people, these guys are Sahabas. But then after that, when their children started coming, and then a great man came from that lineage as well, which is Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, was also one of the children, and from the lineage of Umayyah as well. He was one of the great leaders. And so when these people started coming, what happened? Allah changed them. Allah brought a new leadership. Can you tell me, I mean, mashallah, you guys sit over here, can you tell me the longest reigning caliphate, the Muslim caliphate, the Muslim Khilafah, the longest reigning Muslim Khilafah? All the way from Muhammad SAW till 1918. That was a punch in the back of the Khilafah, and after that was no Khilafah. Then it became nationalist movements, and that's why we got the name Pakistanis.
Was it Ottoman?
It was Ottomans. Can you tell me how long did they reign for?
How long? I don't know.
They got the longest reigning Khilafah.
Was it from the 1200?
Well,
World War I.
You're very close, but how long did they stay in power for?
700 years.
Very, very close.
820.
MashaAllah. Now you know what? You sound like a Pakistani. Why is that? You know, whenever you ask an uncle how many people died, he says 70% people died. Where did he get the stats from? I mean, the Pakistanis are very good to make stats, you know. Whenever you ask someone, you know, they'll all say 80%, 90%. Where did he get that from? You sounded exactly like a Pakistani when you said 825. Actually rounded that. You were actually very close. It was 624 years. And Hamid III was actually the last Khalifa. And he was taken out by the British. So he was actually taken out by them. I was in the alliance of the British as well. Not just the British, the French were there as well. And so there was an alliance with the Russians as well. So these are the guys who actually took him out. And there was a bigger program. So basically, the point that I was trying to make, Allah will take that away. So Jurhum, when they stayed in power, Jurhum was on Tawheed. No matter how bad they were, they never associated partners with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then the guy came from, this is the guy from Khuza'a. This is another guy. So the actual Arabs, even today, till today, actually came from Yemen. They all came from Yemen. So they were, that's where their place was, that's where Ad and Thamud is. So they were all there and they spoke the language, and that's why when they came into the Arabia, this region, which is Mecca and Medina, and that's how they started migrating, because the water was running out. It's a long story of Rabia ibn Nasr, which is one of the leaders of the Yemeni leader who actually decided to leave his land, and he came, basically how he had to leave the land, a very funny story, and still very, very applicable to our time as who we are, as our pretty much our manners and our culture. So basically he knew there was a hole in one of those tanks, because Yemen was not famous for water. One of the civilizations of the world, actually they need water. So he knew water was running out. So he got his son into slapping him in public. So that was his plan, to actually leave the land. Because if the king runs away, that becomes problematic. So he told his son, you have to slap me in public. So in that way I'm going to say I'm not going to live in this land where children raise their hands over their parents. So that was his plan to leave. So that's how he left the land. And he migrated all the way to the region, to Iraq. And that's where some of the Yemeni kings were found later on, which you actually will see in the Sirah as well. So very quickly, from after that, the Yemenis started coming in Mecca and those regions, and they started migrating up north. And the guy Amr ibn Luhay was the first guy when he was the leader of Khuza'a, and when he defeated Jurhum, that's the guy who brought idol worship. How did he bring idol worship? He actually became very sick when he went to Sham for trade. So Sham, when I say Sham, I mean a bigger region. I don't just mean Syria, I mean Lebanon, I mean Palestine, I mean Jordan. So I mean all these 4 countries in there. That's actually Sham. And that's one of the regions why they divided these lands, so they could make Muslims more weaker. So if it's a bigger country, you're more powerful. I mean, at the moment, we are lucky, I mean, no exaggeration, on the face of this earth, our country, Pakistan, strategically is very strong in terms of how we're aligned with the army and the military equipment that we have. We're far better than even Egypt and Turkey, and that's on the camera. I mean, we're far better than them. And that's why we're in a region where we've got our brothers from another mother, which is India, and they never try to mess up with us, because they know that if they do that, we have been on war with them many times, and the last one was not far away. It's not even been 2 decades. I mean, the last one was in 1999. So not for some of you probably were alive then, probably your eyes were open, but you never heard about that war. But that was the last one that we went with them. So that's why they don't mess with us. They know our power, even though we're very small as compared to what India is, and even our army is very small as compared to them, but they never come for us. So basically Amr ibn Luhay got sick, and when he went to Sham, he saw this guy, they're worshipping these idols. And he said, why are you worshipping these? They said these are gods for different needs. So we want water, we want this god, we want this, we want this, we want this. So you remember that there's no water in Mecca. And now you're going to think, okay, now my question is, where did the Zamzam go? Zamzam actually in the time of Ismail. Now where did that go? So Amr ibn Luhay is saying there's no water in Mecca. So he's saying, can you give me a god of water so I can bring it back in Mecca, and then we can ask that god to give us water. So where did the water go now? No, you're being shy, you know, you want to answer, they want to answer. It's okay, if anyone wants answers, they're all going to... Well, look, very quickly, the water actually was covered. They covered the well, and also they hid the treasures, because Jurhum was angry from Khuza'ah taking over, so they hid the well. And so that's why, see, you should have used your intellect to remember who found the water later on. It was the grandfather of, you know that dream, right? You've heard about that dream. So he found that water. So that it's basically what Jurhum did. Jurhum actually hid the water. They covered that well. And so no one would ever know there was ever water here. So that's what they did. And they also hid the treasures in the Kaaba. So now when he comes back, so he starts bringing all these idols. There were two idols, Naila and Isaf. And these idols were actually not idols. They were humans turned into stones. So basically they were coming from Yemen, and their parents were actually a good example. I mean, you guys, one of the things is, because you guys are growing up, you live in a country, mashallah, everything's readily available on your fingertips. And you know, at times we're growing up, it becomes very hard. We see the opposite gender, we start getting excited, want to know them more, we want to speak to them, and you know, it's human nature, it's okay. Well, because Allah, when He made Adam alayhi salam, and at the same time, in order to accompany him, He actually made the female as well, which was Hawa, and that was how they actually came about, and that's how we came about in the world, and they're their great-great-grandfathers. I mean, when Darwin says that, mashallah, you all done year 12, and if you've read biology, where science says that your grandfather was a monkey, and as Muslims we actually do not believe in that. We say your grandfather could be a monkey, but mine was not, because Allah told me yours is Adam alayhi salam, and we did not come from a monkey. I mean, even though science has many theories they put forward, but again, we believe. And this is where I want to give you a principle, inshallah, something that you as kids are growing up, and you have many encounters with the non-Muslims. There are three ways in order to actually answer questions, and when it comes to science, when it comes to Islam. The first way is when science is ambiguous and Quran and Sunnah is evident, we scrap science. Example is grandfather being a monkey. So if you know your Quran really well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Inni ja'ilu khalifa. Who's Allah talking about in Surah Baqarah? This is right in the beginning, right bang in the beginning, after 20 ayahs. When Allah has finished speaking about munafiqun in Surah Baqarah, Allah actually now is talking about creation. So it's right there, it's an evidence. We take Quran as that. The second principle, where Quran is ambiguous and science is evident. So you want to give an example, anyone?
Earth being round.
MashaAllah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Musa, Allah actually says, وَجَعَلَّ الْأَرْضَ مِهَادًا. So what does actually mihada means? It does not mean round, does not mean flat, it just means spread out. Spread out for you. Quran is ambiguous. And science has evidence through space, which actually comes to another. I'll give you a quick story. I mean, that's why you were saying how long you want to talk for. I can talk for hours, trust me. So one of the stories come to mind is Sheikh Ibn Baz, rahimahullah ta'ala, one of the greatest sheikhs of the 20th century. If you don't know, probably look into his life. He was the Mufti of Saudi in the time of King Khalid and also in the time of King Fahd. So he died in the 1999, just when we went war with India. That's roughly about the time he died as well. And he actually used to believe the earth is round. Earth is flat. And why did he believe that? He was a blind sheikh. He lost his eyes completely at the age of 19. But it was an intellect. Allah actually gave him the sixth sense. He memorized everything. He was great. He's a mufti of Saudi. So, and he always believed that. And there were some scholars in the past as well who've actually believed Earth is not round. So this prince was going to the space with NASA. And the prince said, how do I pray in space? There's no time over there. There's no governance of time over there. So how do I pray when I go to space? So the sheikh smiled and he laughed and he cracked a joke and he said, why do you want to go to the space? Isn't the earth enough for you? So he said, no, I'm going for an educational trip. So I will be in space for this many days. How do I pray? He said, when you leave the land, follow the timetable of the land that you left. So you left America, fix your watch according to the time of America. Every time the clock, the different times come, then you pray like that. When he came back, he told the sheikh, the earth is round. I went into space and I saw it with my own eyes. It wasn't flat. And so he believed after that. So that's the second principle. What's the third principle? When Quran and Sunnah and science, they all are ambiguous. Dinosaurs. You're not going to become a kafir if you believe there are dinosaurs. Quran does not talk about it. Sunnah does not speak about it. Aliens. All these are ambiguous. There are findings. Quran talks about, science speaks about fossils. I mean, again, we don't know. Evidently, were they dinosaurs or not? I mean, I've never read in any of the hadith books. Neither. Yeah, we've spoken about the Ad and Thamud. They were really strong nations. I mean, they were big. There are some pictures that you see, or you've probably seen on the internet, this giant person. Again, I don't even believe in those pictures myself, but then again, there could be a reality in that. So there is no problem if you believe in that or if you don't believe in that. And that's the third principle. And so all our things should be based on that. So if you ask a question to yourself, that's why don't treat Quran as a science book. Quran is a guidance, and that's in the first ayah of Quran after Surah Fatiha finishes. Alif Lam Mim. What's the next ayah? What's after that? Hudal lil muttaqeen. Allah did not say that this is a science book. This is a guidance. Allah says there's no doubt in it, and it's actually, if we treat Quran as a science book, you know what? You lose your religion. You'll lose your religion because you'll start justifying everything in science with Quran. There are snippets of science in there, but then some stories are the way Quran speaks about. I mean, there's science denies those stories. Water, the sea parting. Musa alayhi salam did that. So Quran in itself is a book of guidance for us that we refer back to. If very quickly, just very finally, the last thing about the science as well, where do you wipe your socks? If you had to wipe your socks for prayer, how do you do it? Do you do it on the top of the feet or do you do it at the bottom of the feet? Top. But what does intellect say? Where does the feet get dirty? On the top or at the bottom? Why do you do it on the top? This is the thing. Sami'na wa ata'na. There are a lot of things that are not going to make sense to us. We hear it and we believe it. None of you have seen God. I mean, I haven't seen it. I don't know about you guys. I haven't seen God, but I believe in it. I mean, I haven't seen Gabriel, but some people say they've seen Gabriel. He comes to them every now and then, but I haven't seen him. So I still believe in him. And that's why there's a lot of things in Islam that we haven't seen, but we still believe in it. And that's part of our belief. And if you look at all the articles of faith, everything in it, you have, none of us, probably we might have seen Muhammad SAW in our tree. Might have seen him. But again, there's all these other articles of faith, we have not even experienced any of those. Angels. Oh sorry, I forgot the book one. Yeah, we've seen the books. But again, you haven't seen the other 3 books. The ones that are around actually are not the authentic ones, but we haven't seen the authentic ones. We've seen Quran, that's a living miracle. So now, fast forward, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, very quickly about the region, idol worship started coming in the region. So now, this region is becoming land of idol worship, and now they're in the midst of 2 superpowers. One actually lives in the northeast, and the other one lives in the northwest. And these powers have been around for a long time. One has been around for 2,000 years, and the other one's been around for close to 2,000 as well. I mean, they're roughly about 1,900 years. I don't even tell me who these 2 powers are. And they never came to Mecca or these lands. There was a reason, because they knew the Arabs as Asfal as-Safilin. Do you know what Asfal as-Safilin is? It's actually the 5th column. It means someone who has no value. And that's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Tin. Asfal as-Safilin actually means someone who has no value. So it's like the 5th column. You know what a 5th column is, right? In a newspaper, where you put the obituaries just in the corner where no one reads. And it's the cheapest ad to put in as well. Did you know that? The most cheapest ad in the paper is an obituary. If you want to put a headline, that's more expensive. That comes to a story. Very quickly, I want to give you this. There's a real story from England. There's a guy who actually loved. Both were, they were in love with each other. They got married. Shakir and Parveen, very, very in love with each other. And so Parveen died, and Shakir was very sad. And so Shakir went to the newspaper. He wanted to put an ad in the paper, and he said to the guys, I want to put an ad in the paper. And he said, oh yeah, you can put an ad in the paper, but you only get 3 words. And he said, 3 words? For how much is that? He said, 20 quid. If you guys don't know quid, it's pounds. He said, 20 quid. And he said, 20 quid for 3 words? I said, okay, you know what? Right, Parveen is dead. And the man sitting behind the counter, he looks at him, he looks like a genuine guy. You know what? He says, you know what? You look like a genuine guy, your wife died. I'll give you 3 more words. And he's elated. He says, 3 more words? Right, Parveen is dead, micro for sale. You guys probably didn't get the joke. Parveen used to drive micro, so he was trying to sell them. So he said, Parveen is dead, micro for sale. And so get rid of the car now, guys, come on. So now what happens is, well, that's why you Australians have a very dry sense of humour. It's very hard to make you guys laugh. Anyways, well, look, I'm learning, hopefully. So, probably because you guys don't drive micro. Micro for us is Mercedes, so yeah. In England, if you drive a micro, you drive a Mercedes. Mostly, I grew up on the bus and the tube, so I hardly drove a car. Ever since I've come to Australia, you see these big backyards, you get elated. Oh, backyard. We don't even have a backyard. So yeah, we're big houses, barbecues. When in the UK, a barbecue only happens in a restaurant. Never happens in a house, so. It does, but you don't have big backyards, so how many people are you going to put in there? So now, Muhammad SAW is being born, and Allah is accommodating that region. So 2 superpowers, one's the Persians. Alright? You've probably seen the movie 300, right? The Persians fought. Who did they fight? The Romans. What were the Romans known in the ancient history? What was their name? The Byzantines. So the Byzantines were on this side, and the Persians were on this side. And they never wanted to come, and because they knew Arabs were the most unruly people. I mean, the Arabs were idol worshippers. women were the dirt of the society. They would kill their girls who were born. They went on fights only for the reason if the camel jumped over the fence to the other guy's house, they would go on 100 years of wars. And they would wipe people out. They were the most unruly people. No one wanted to rule them. Now Christianity is actually coming down in Yemen. It actually comes down in Yemen through, if you remember, this the incident of Ashab al-Ukhdud. Do you know the Surah Buruj? In that, when they start burning the people, so the Ethiopian Najashi, so again, for historical perspective, very quickly, I'm going to take 10 more minutes inshallah, and then we can bring it to a close. I know you guys are getting bored, but so when you look at the historical perspective, Ethiopian leaders, remember these, okay, these are terminologies, are always known as Najashis, alright? And the Yemeni leaders are known as Tubbas, alright, that's their title. And the one in Persia is known as Kisra. It's actually not his name, it's the title of the king. And so the one who is from Sham, what is he known as? One's a Kisra up there, which is the Persians. Qaisar. When you say in Arabic, when they say Qais wa Qisra, so Qaisar is actually the name of the Shami, the Byzantine leaders. And the ones that are over here are, which are the Persians, are the Kisras. And then Najashi, if you know from the seerah of Rasulullah, Najashi, that's actually not his name. Why he was called Najashi? Because that was a title, it was a king. And the kings of Yemen were known as Tubbas. So now, when the Ashab al-Ukhdud incident happened, because the king killed all these people. Why? Because they had converted to Christianity. And so when Najashi found out, he sent Abraha to attack Yemen. And when he came to attack Yemen, what happened? He killed all those people to avenge the blood of the Christians. And what happened after that? The king saved himself. Saif, his name was. Saif Zoshin. Actually saved himself. And he went all the way up to get help from the Persians. And so when he went to the Persians, this is where you see immaculate wealth, which is unheard of. Just to give you a very quick snippet of the amount of wealth that Kisra had. The crown that he wore was 90 kgs. Now you must be thinking, oh, we would be crushed to death. We wore a 90 kg crown. That's with the jewels and the rubies and made out of gold. That was suspended on the roof with gold chains. And he would come and sit on his place, and his head would just fit where it was suspended. So that was his crown. So imagine the amount of wealth the Persians had. So if you saw that movie, in that movie you saw he was still wearing jewels, that king, whatever they made him out of. So that's how they were lavish people. And that's why if you look politically, the Byzantines also have lost the plot. They are also going into that realm of but the Arabs are still, they're hard-working, and Allah wanted to now send a prophet. So now this incident is over. Now what happens, Kisra actually sends a force down. And he sends a force down and he crushes the Christians. And now it becomes another pagan land, the fire worshippers. And so now, before that, when this army was coming down, Abraha built a church, which you have the surah, Alam tara kayfa fa'ala rabbuka bi ashabil fil. And there was only one camel in there, and the Arabs had never seen a camel. Where did the camel actually come from? The camel actually came from Ethiopia and those regions, from Africa. And so that's why the Arabs were gobsmacked when they saw this camel. You know these funny stories where they actually tell the kids about that camel named Mahmoud, and all these stories that are out there to please the kids. But Mahmoud I don't know what his name was. I mean, well, last time when I was watching National Geography, I never saw any elephant talking or telling their name, so that's why I don't know if it was a true story or not. But what happens is now you know Muhammad SAW is born in the same time. So now we've got a big concept of birthdays. We love birthdays, we want to celebrate the birthdays, but the Arabs had no concept of birthdays. That's why the debate is always on for the date when the Prophet was born. The more correct opinion is 12th was the day when he died. You've got a group in my country where I come from, I mean, without naming or shaming anyone, they have big inaugurations for birthdays that they come out, and I mean there's no substance in that. And again, if you look at the seerah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, no Sahaba practiced that. It actually started by Fatimids. Fatimid was another Khilafah which actually came in Egypt, and they were the sister Khilafah of Abbasids, so they were the supporters. And so when they were in power as well, Abbasids were again in power at the same time, because they gave them refuge. And then that's where the birthday concept started. And so the actual date, he died on the same day as born on the same day, so which was Monday. And well, if you look at historical dates, the more likely he was born on the 9th, and he died on the 12th, which is very, very, if you go back today, you got these calendars. So sallallahu alaihi wasallam, if you look at those calendars, it can tell you that the date was the 12th when he died. So we know the date as well, because he was born. He died in the 10th year of Hijrah. What Hijrah year are we in? You all know it's the 27th of December, 2051, right? Today is 2051, right? Yeah. There you go. See, well, one's with me. So, well, in Islamic calendar, there's a date for today as well.
1447.
It's 1441. So it's kind of, thanks to the white people, they programmed us in a way that we work with the Gregorian calendar, we've forgotten the Hijri calendar. But it's a part of the legacy of Umar ibn Khattab. Umar ibn Khattab had many legacies. I mean, this is not his time, but this is the calendar. Who started the calendar was again Umar ibn Khattab. So radiallahu anhu, he actually started this Muslim calendar, and there was no one prior to that. And he was the one who actually chose where to start it from as well, because Abdullah ibn Abbas and other elite Sahabas had, and they said, we want to start the calendar from Hajj. Some said, no, we want to start the calendar from Ramadan. He said, no, we're going to start the calendar when Rasulullah migrated in that month. And that month was the first, what's the January of Islam? Muharram. MashaAllah. So yeah, it was Muharram. At least you got one right. Alright, so basically what happens is now the camel, this army has come there, and they protect the Kaaba. This is the year that he's born in. His close allies, 4 people, are not. One is 2 years younger than him. The first one, which is Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. The other one's 13 years younger than him, which is Umar ibn Khattab. And then the third one is roughly about 3 or 4 years younger than him. Uthman was actually not very young. Uthman died at the age of 83. He's not very young when he was with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He was actually roughly the same age, and probably about 5 years if you want to put it to perspective. The youngest one of the allies is Ali radiallahu anhu. He is 30 years younger, because when the Nabuwa came, Prophet was 40 and he was 10. Today you tell a 10-year-old kid to pray without jittering, it would be very unlikely you find him pray and do all the rituals. I mean, this 10-year-old was actually ready, and he did all his rituals without wavering, and that was Ali ibn Abi Talib. And then there was another kid of probably your age, and that kid was the first one to raise a sword for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. and he was probably some of you are 15 today, and he was 15 or 14. This is none other than his own family member, a distant family member. You could say he was his cousin, like a cousin. Why? Because he was actually the son of Safiya binti Abdul Muttalib, and that's Zubair ibn Awwam. And so he was a kid. It was a very, very young kid, a powerful man who could pick up 2 swords in 2 hands and fight and ride a horse. So not even holding the reins of a horse, riding the horse with a brisk pace and using 2 swords at a time. Today, we're youngsters, we tell you to lift 1 sword of what the Prophet was fighting with. You probably need some people to lift you after that as well. You probably have a backache or something. But now, Muhammad SAW is coming, and now the first early incidents, very quickly, the first one is happening is Hilf al-Fudul. This is the first ever thing that the Prophet is part of, and he's a very young kid at this time. He's a very young kid. I mean, probably from his youth, you could say, not a kid. I mean, kid's not the right word. He was 22 or 23. A very young person. So Hilf al-Fudul was why? Because As ibn Wa'il, one of the tyrants who was alive in the time of Rasulullah SAW, he actually, a Yemeni trader came, and this guy was a nomad. He had no family, no allies, so he took some goods off him and he did not pay him. And he kept on brushing him off and off and off until he came and he said, you're not going to get your money, go wherever you like. And so now this incident happened. He was part of that pledge. The other thing happened, he married after 2 years to Khadija, and the other thing happened was the building of Kaaba, which was 35 he was, and then 40 was when the Nabuwah came, and then chronologically the first 5 years are secretive dawah, or maybe personal dawah, that's the right word, going to everyone and telling them about Islam personally, on a personal level. Then it starts coming out now, calling everyone and the family members, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that in the Quran, in Surah Ahzab, Allah mentions that, and then Allah used the word ashiratakum, so actually call your family now. You have to be upfront, you have to tell them. And then that after that, the 3 years of boycott. So the boycott is when they are abandoned from the Quraysh, and they're put into a valley between 2 mountains, and this is now the 2 people die, his supporters. One die as a non-Muslim. We believe that, that's also our belief. I mean, there are scholars who debate that, but our belief will go with the Sahih Hadith. Rasulullah said, my uncles will get the least of the punishment, and the least of the punishment in hellfire, he'll be wearing shoes of fire, and that will burn and boil his head. And that was the punishment of Abu Talib. And that's a Sahih Hadith. It's actually that's for another topic. This is not a mutawatir hadith. It's a hadith ahad. So there are 2 kinds of hadith where the scholars actually always debate: the ahad hadith and the mutawatir hadith. I mean, that's not the time to tell you what it is. You can tell me, you can ask me after in the Q&A session, inshallah. I'll tell you what it is. But then you go into that time, and then the kind of incident of Taif, which happens right after that. So, and then after that is now the persecution of his own uncle who's become the leader, which is Abu Lahab. Now he's the leader because Abu Talib is dead. So now he's got no one to give him refuge. So who does he go to? Mut'im ibn Adi. And where is Mut'im ibn Adi from? He's from Banu Nawfal. And Banu Nawfal, this is the guys now, they give him a refuge. So after from Taif, he needs to come back, he needs a visa. You know, when you go to a country, you need a visa. So he's left Mecca now, he's got no allies over there, he needs to come back. So he's asking who's going to give him. So he asked everyone. He asked Suhail ibn Amr to give him refuge. He asked Abu Sufyan to give him refuge. Abu Sufyan is a family member of Rasulullah SAW. But then guess what happens? No one gives him. Mut'im ibn Adi comes forward, a great man. Rasulullah said on the day of Badr, he said, if you see Mut'im ibn Adi, do not fight him. In the midst of the battle, Rasulullah is saying, do not fight him, leave him alone. He died as a mushrik, but he was a man who was, that shows another example for today. There are good people in the mushrikeen, in these people as well. Not everyone's after us, not everyone's Islamophobe. There are people that we can befriend and we can use them for our advantage as well. And then comes Isra wal Miraj. Again, a great journey, as you all know. This was in the 11th year and the 12th year, roughly about that time. And Isra is one journey, Miraj is one journey. Their words, they're synonymous. One journey is from Mecca to Bayt al-Maqdis. This is called Isra. In Arabic, the word Isra means the night journey. When you travel in the night, that's why it was called Isra. Miraj is i'raja. It actually means to ascend, to go up. So Miraj was another journey. That was going to the heavens. And I'll test you afterwards in every heaven what the Prophet say. I mean, you can take your mobile out and start looking at it. After Salah, I'll be testing you on that. Now comes Aqaba, the two pledges. The first pledge is a religious pledge, which is in the 12th year, when the tribe of Khazraj comes from Medina. And why Rasulullah thought they will be more towards him? Why? Because his mother's from there. Remember Hashim? Do you guys know who Hashim was? He was the great grandfather of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He actually was born in he married a lady from Medina, and they from Khazraj, and that's when they had the son Abdul Muttalib. Abdul Muttalib actually came to Mecca at a young age. He actually grew up in Medina, the grandfather of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And why was he called Abdul Muttalib? Because Hashim's brother Muttalib actually got him into Mecca. While coming, the Arabs were known to bring slaves. So they said Abdul Muttalib, the slave of Muttalib. He had a name, his name was Shayba. Why was he called Shayba? Because he was born with a white streak of hair in the middle of his head. Shayba actually in Arabic means an old man. So that's why Hashim named him Shayba. So that's why Rasulullah knew that these are my relatives, and also his mother died over there when she was going on the way back from Medina. She died over there, so he knew that these are the relatives, they'll look after him. So that's why Khazraj, the 12 people, the Aqaba, the first pledge in the 12th year is known as the religious pledge. And the second pledge is the political pledge. Why is the political pledge? Because now approximately 70 people come in the 13th year and they say, we'll defend you with our money, with our with our tribes, with our lives, and we will protect you and we'll make you a leader. So they're giving him a pledge and they're saying the state's ready for you. We're going to make you a president. And so that's what they're in a nutshell. That's the whole life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in Mecca, which is 13 years of Risala. How many years of Risala? 13 years, which is 13 years of prophethood, and 40 years of, just very quickly, last point inshallah. You know what I say last, I mean don't believe the sheikhs because they keep on saying last, it never ends. But this one's the last, trust me. So, last point is, one of the things that we see, a lot of people have come up with a lot of stories. And Seerah is full of weak narrations when it comes to the early life of Rasulullah. No one knew he was going to become a great man. Right, let's be honest. There was a great man in coming because he was coming from a very noble tribe. I mean, just for you should actually know, at least you should trace back Rasulullah from Kilab. So Kilab was the father of Qusay. Qusay was the father of, come on, you guys should know this, Abdul Manaf. Abdul Manaf was the father of Hashim. Hashim was the father of Abdul Muttalib. Abdul Muttalib was the father of Abdullah. Abdullah was the father of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. At least we should know Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam as far as the sixth grandfather. And Qusay was the one, very quickly, the one who actually got Jurhum back in power. So how Jurhum came back in power? They took over Khuza'ah. That was through Qusay. That was the grandfather who actually took the power back from there. How did he take that power? Because he was married to the daughter of Khuza'ah. So while Khuza'ah, the leader, died, he actually became the leader. There was not much rift in there. There's a little battle as well, there's a little story, and there's no time for that. But then what we need to understand is the early part of the seerah has many du'afs, many stories. One of the stories which is often said, and you all have memorized this story, Halima Sa'diyah came on a donkey and she did not want to take Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You know what? it was an insult to the Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Why would no one want to take the leader's son, grandson? We all have established Abdul Muttalib was the leader of Quraysh, and he was in guardianship with that. Ulama have debated about these narrations, and then what we do, we demean Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam by saying, oh, you know what, no one wanted to take him, she came back the other day. These are all, that's why the history, the early part of the Prophet's life is a part where there's a lot of weak narrations. But Medina and the end of the Nabuwah, these are the times where you see authentic narration. If you guys want to go more elaborative on seerah, and if you do know Arabic, some of the great seerahs are Ibn Hisham, it's in Arabic. One of the other ones, the greatest one, which is the living legend seerah, is Ibn Ishaq. Everyone actually takes from there. Ibn Kathir is in English as well, you can actually benefit from that. There's another one, Al-Waqidi. There's another, he actually also did a seerah, and that's a very good seerah to look at. But they're more contemporary. The seerahs are at the moment, which are in English. Saif Rahman Mubarak Puri actually did a very good seerah. It's a very subjective seerah. So I personally don't like subjective books because they're very boring. Always read a book which is very objective. It keeps you entertaining. Why do we have lost the art of reading? Is why? Because we've read so many subjective books, we're bored to death. So when you read objective books, it actually is giving you principles as well. So if you want to read an objective seerah, a very good seerah, is actually done by the son of Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab. This is the guy who actually changed the perspective of Saudi. He had a son, Abdullah. Actually did a book. It's published by Dar es-Salaam. It's in 2 volumes. A very objective book to read, and it's a very short book to read because he only brings authentic narrations in there. أقول قولي هذا استغفر الله لي ولكم فاستغفر الله إنه الغفور الرحيم. So I'll just open it up for questions, and then inshallah we'll go into salah after that. I hope I was on time.
No. It's fine. Does anyone have any questions?
So who was the last Khalifa in Islam?
Hamid III, which is from the Ottomans, and he was actually taken down by, as I said, the British were behind the First World War, and us Muslims from India, because the Mughals actually were never part of the Ottomans. Ottomans were not, you can't call it, a full-fledged Khilafah, because the Mughals, again, it's the Pakistanis and the Indians again, we were not in charter with the Ottomans. We were under the Mughal Empire, and this was an empire which was on its own, and they were in power on its own. So that's got nothing to do. And Ottomans were in a region which was a very central region, which is Sham and Palestine and Turkey and some part was spread. The Turkey part spread into Eastern Europe and those regions, and also in Saudi and those places as well, but not in this region. Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, Afghanistan, they were actually not under the Ottomans. For us, our last Khalifa would be Bahadur Shah Zafar. That was the last Mughal leader in India, and he's a poet as well. I think that's why the demise was, because he was too busy in poetry, couldn't lift a sword. The only thing he lifted was a pen. So at times you do need a sword, you do need a pen as well, but there are times when both things here. Anything else?
See, the Arabic language, where did it originally come from? Yemen?
It's Yemen, Ad and Samud. The ancient Arabs. The other Arabic languages, where did they learn it from? They learned it from Shem. In the Old Testament, Noah had 3 children. And you know the name Sam. They use the word Sam, but actually Shem. The word is Shem in the Hebrew text. So he was the guy who was in that region. So Noah, if you know, Nuh alayhi salam, he had 3 sons. And from those 3 sons, those spread out, and that's where the population of the world again started. So that was a child from where they learned the Arabic language. So that's what the ones, the Shem and Ad and Thamud, they're coming after them, Hud and Saleh. These are pure Arabs. That's what the hadith also says. There are 4 Arab prophets that came to this land, this world. You know, there's narration that we know. How many prophets are there? You probably heard this. It's a very common narration. But again, this is a very da'if narration again. But there is a common number to it. Does anyone know what's the number of the prophet that came?
Is it 26? Was it 25,000?
No, I'm not talking about the Quran particularly. You're on the line somewhere along the lines of 25,000, or you could do the Pakistani father, 80% of the prophets. But it's 124,000. That's the word. That's again a very weak narration again. But from that, if we were to picture that, from that Rasulullah said only 4 prophets were Arab. One he said it was him, and then the other 2 already told you. What's the 4th one? What's the 4th one for a Coke? Shu'aib, mashallah. So you can have a cup of Coke if you like. So yeah, that's the Arab. And then came the Arabized Arabs. So the Arabized Arabs are because of the Sahabas. Like the Egyptians, they're not Arabs. They're the Arabized Arabs. They learn the language. They're Coptics. So they're under Coptic rule for all these years. They're Mesopotamia region. They're the children of Pharaoh. When I said that on camera, I'll delete that later. But they're the children of, because they are the children of Pharaoh. The Egyptians are. And that's where the Bani Israel ran away from them. And so they were the Coptics, so the religion. If you know history, you probably have history at school, the Mesopotamia region. You've heard that word? Yeah. So Mesopotamia actually is the region of the Egyptians. That's where it's the Red Sea. That's the region where the pharaohs were in power. And they're the very old, ancient civilization. They didn't speak Arabic. Amr ibn al-As taught them Arabic. Because the Sahaba, the Arab. So these are the people, again, these are the second category. They're called Arab al-Araba. So basically Arab al-Araba means they're the ones who have the mixture of the pure Arabs and the Ismail alayhi salam. Remember I told you? So that was that mixture. So who are they? There's a lineage of Muhammad SAW coming, and they're called Qahtani Arabs. And that's why if you go to Saudi today in Yemen, you have these surnames, Qahtani. So that's those Arabs. You know, there's a fortress of Muslims actually done by a scholar. His surname is Qahtani. He's from that region. He's actually that Arab. So even today there's a lot of mixture. I mean, the Lebanese. If you look at, if you know Arabic language a little bit, I'll just give you a snippet. Why was the reason, very quickly, why did Quraysh send their kids to the desert? There's there's many reasons. I can actually give you 2 main reasons. Why did they do that? You know, today we speak English. There's a banter that we have. You know, it's a lingo, and so we speak at a level, and well, we still don't have a banter with you guys. Your sense of humor is too dry, but you know, we do speak at a level, but if our dad spoke English, we run far away because we probably don't. We try to say that we don't understand. You know, what is he saying? Or Dad, can you be quiet when we're there in the shop? You know, let me do the talking. You know, I don't want to get embarrassed. Sometimes we do that. So that's why the Arabs used to send their kids to keep the language pure. How many people have been to Umrah recently? You know, the worst Arabic spoken by the Meccans. If you've been to Umrah, you know, they don't, the word in Arabic is bisura, alright, means to hurry up. Or I mean harrak, also means, it's a bit more, it means to go, come on, rush, harrak, that's the word. But you know, if you go today, the Arabs of Mecca also say jaldi, jaldi. Why? Because the language is being corrupted. It's corrupted. And that's why if you look at if you've got an Egyptian friend, he never says kayfa halukum. He will never say that. What does he say? He says izayik. Why does he say izayik? Izayik's an Arabic word, but what does izayik really mean? It actually means how are your clothes. It doesn't mean how you are. So this is what it is. So the language has been, and so how we speak at a lingo, because we've actually met, if someone spoke from Pakistan, I am going to the market, actually this is a right word, this is a right sentence, but because we speak in a way, we choose some words. You know, for example, one of the best of the examples that can come to my mind is the T's. If you're from London and if you're a Cockney from South, you don't say water. You're not going to say water. You say water. Water.
Water.
Water. Because if you're from South, you're a Cockney, you're not going to say water. And again, you guys, the Australians, don't even say water, because we say the glotted T. It's the T. We emphasize the T. It's the battles. You know, so the T is very important for a Britisher. It's the T is very important. Either we don't say it or we say it. We make it remarkable. So that's how it is. But if you're from South, you actually don't say T. You say butter.
Bah.
It's butter. It's actually not butter. It says butter. So that's why the language is very important. That was one of the reasons. The other reasons is their children were very lackadaisic. Meaning if you live in the city, as you know, kids are the iPhone age and the PlayStation age, just become lazy, couch potatoes, you know, just sit there and everything's being served. Your mother's there, father's working like slave. The poor mum comes in with the plate, gives you the plate, and you guys are eating. But they didn't want their kids like that. They sent them to desert, so they wanted them to become hard, tough. That's what Khalid bin Walid. Do you know Khalid bin Walid's father? Who was Khalid bin Walid's father? MashaAllah, you made it. Well, what was his name? It was Mughira. Yeah, that's right. He was Walid ibn Mughira. It was said in Mecca, the Quraysh said, didn't Allah see Walid ibn Mughira? Why did he give you the wahi? Why? Because Walid ibn Mughira ticked all the boxes. He had 10 sons. He was the richest. He was the richest. And he was from the most noblest tribe of Quraysh as well. Don't get me wrong, Muhammad SAW is a very noble tribe as well, but he's not from the rich tribe. Why? Because Banu Hashim and Banu Abdul Muttalib is more about name and fame. What do? They do chores of Kaaba. That's what makes them important. But he was from a tribe which is Bani Makhzum. They're actually known for money. And so Walid ibn Mughira was so rich, he could change the cover of Kaaba, the kiswa of Kaaba. And when he used to do it, he would do it alone. And when the next year would come, everyone of Quraysh would come together to change it. But what Khalid bin Walid describes his childhood. What was his childhood? He was a woodcutter. He didn't have money to feed himself. His father would beat him. He would go in the desert, cut wood and bring in the house, and his father would pay him for the chore. Today, if your father's driving a BMW, you're more likely to drive a Golf GTI. You're not going to be on a donkey, right? So that's how the Arabs, for them, it was very important that their children are tough and they speak the right language. It's very important. That was one of the main reasons. And so language is very important. You know, we have to be very close to the language. And you know, if you can learn Arabic language, there are many avenues in today's day and age where you can learn language. And you don't have to learn language to buy a shawarma from Auburn. Remember that. You need to learn language to read Quran and understand it. When you're standing in the Taraweeh, you know the Imam's crying. Why you're not crying? Why? Because you probably eat too many pakoras on that day. And your stomach's just bloating. Or probably you don't understand what the Imam's saying. So it's important that we know this language. It's a language of Jannah. Don't be lazy. I'm going to be speaking in Jannah. Yeah, definitely you're going to speak in Jannah. But again, you have to speak it over here as well. Yeah.
Just two announcements. Number one, the second part to this lecture, the Madani lecture, will be in February by Sheikh Ridwan Ahmed. And the second announcement is that the farm youth will be hosting a barbecue next Friday. The person for it would be absent, so you all should receive it, and we'll have more details on it. You guys, Sheikh, can you close off with the dua, please?
Yeah, inshallah. اللهم اهدنا فيمن هديت وعافنا فيمن عافيت وتولنا فيمن توليت وبارك لنا فيما أعطيت وقنا واصرف عنا بفضلك شر ما قضيت فإنك تقضي بالحق ولا يقضى إليك فإنه يذل من ولعيت ولا يعز من عاديت تباركت ربنا وتعاليت لا ملجأ منك إلا إليك لك الحمد على ما قضيت نستغفرك اللهم ونتوب إليك اللهم اغفر لنا وللمؤمنين والمؤمنات والمسلمين والمسلمات ومنهم الأحياء والأموات اللهم انصر الإسلام والمسلمين اللهم انصر العساكر المسلمين اللهم انصر الجماعة الموحدين واخذل الكفار والمشركين واهلك الكفار والمشركين يا رب العالمين اللهم كن لإخواننا في باكستان يا رب العالمين وكن لإخواننا في هند يا رب العالمين وكن لإخواننا في مصر يا رب العالمين وكن لإخواننا في الشام يا رب العالمين وفي السودان يا رب العالمين وفي كل عالم الإسلام يا رب العالمين اللهم ثبت قلوبنا اللهم ثبت أقدامنا يا مقلب القلوب ثبت قلوبنا على دينك وثبت أقدامنا على دينك ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين لنكونن من الخاسرين يا رب العالمين رب ارحمهما كما ربياني صغيرا رب ارحمهما كما ربياني صغيرا يا رب العالمين. We gather here today and we remember you Ya Allah and we remember your Prophet Ya Allah and to remember your Prophet is an ibadah Ya Allah, and we ask you Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to guide us to the right path Ya Allah, and to guide us to the path of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam Ya Allah. Ya Allah, to let us be the ones who hear and the ones who get the guidance and we follow it Ya Allah, without being any questions asked in our lives Ya Allah. Ya Allah, we've got the youth over here Ya Allah. Ya Allah, we want them Ya Allah, because we are not going to be around Ya Allah to take this message forward Ya Allah, and they will be the ones who are going to carry the baton Ya Allah, the baton of Islam Ya Allah, and we give this baton to them Ya Allah so they can take it forward and they can take this religion to the progenies of Islam, to the progenies of the Muslim that will come in this land Ya Allah. Ya Allah, protect our youth Ya Allah. Ya Allah, protect the Muslimin Ya Allah. Muslimin all around the world that are suffering Ya Allah, particularly the Muslims of China Ya Allah and the Muslims of India at the moment Ya Allah are getting it really hard Ya Allah. Ya Allah, can Ya Allah assist them Ya Allah. Ya Allah, assist them Ya Allah. Ya Allah, assist them and keep them in your mercy Ya Allah. Ya Allah, we ask them Allahumma arham mawtana wa mawt al-muslimin Allahumma washfi mardana wa marda al-muslimin. Ya Allah, we ask about our ones who are dead, the ones who are dead Ya Allah, our loved ones Ya Allah. We ask Ya Allah to have mercy on them Ya Allah and to elevate them Ya Allah, and we ask Ya Allah of our loved ones Ya Allah and all the Muslims Ya Allah who are suffering in any way or any form of any illness Ya Allah, Ya Allah, to protect them Ya Allah and to give them shifa'i ajila كاملة دائمة مستمرة يا رب العالمين. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.